everybody, welcome back to the Tequila Princess channel. Today we're gonna start learning about Mexico piece by piece. We're gonna take the whole country, cut it down into pieces. Well, we're not gonna cut it, it's already cut in states, 32 of them. So we're gonna be going through the 32 states one by one. And we're gonna be starting with
¡Viva Aguascalientes!
So Mexico has 31 states and one capital city, which makes technically 32 states. And we're gonna be learning about every single one of them. Aguascalientes is one of the smallest states in the country. It represents only the 3% of the whole country, so it's kind of really tiny. And it's located right in the middle of the country. So up to 2015, there was 1.3 million people living there. And the weather is super nice. It's a semi-dry, warm weather, so neither way too hot or too cold. Like, never. Nothing too extreme, so it's perfect. We cannot talk about Aguascalientes without talking of the biggest, most expected, one of the most popular carnivals in the country, which is Feria de San Marcos. This is a huge event that usually takes place for one full month near of Easter. Let's say mid-April till mid-May. During the feria, you will find a lot of things going on. Like, for example, the only casino in Mexico where gambling is allowed. Different cultural events like opera presentations and art exhibitions and many other stuff. But the biggest events usually are the bullfighting and the cockfighting. I am an animal lover, so I definitely do not endorse or crave for that kind of event. But it's there, so if you like it, you can go and see it. I won't. There are many other things that are super cool that are usually there. Like, for example, the Expo Ganadera, which is an exhibition of all sorts of different livestock that is just super cool. There is also a national contest of typical dressing. It's super interesting. And finally, there is another event that I really like, which is the National Contest of Poetry. So if you happen to be in Mexico near Easter, make sure to visit La Feria de San Marcos. It's just one very emblematic festivity in the country and a must. And talking about celebrations and events and stuff, there are also a couple festivals in Aguascalientes that are definitely worth going to. For example, Festival de la Uva y el Vino, the Wine and Grape Festival, which is celebrated on the first week of September. Aguascalientes has the perfect weather for vineyards, and there are many. In Mexico, we can find amazing wines from Aguascalientes and Zacatecas, which is kind of near. And if you go a little bit farther into the year, during November, you can also attend the Festival de las Calaveras, the Skull Festival. You know, in Mexico, we have a very crazy, fun, and good relationship with death. So we have the Day of the Dead celebration, Dia de los Muertos. You celebrate it in a different way in every state. Some of them make more noise, and some of them are more quiet. Some of them go for a more intimate celebration, and some of the others go for a big party. This is the case. You will find parades and contests and exhibitions. It's beautiful, particularly because we have one of the most important lithographers of the country who's originally from Aguascalientes. His name is José Guadalupe Posada, and he was the author of a very famous lithography of La Catrina. He lived during the Mexican Revolution times. So he kind of had always a very satirical and political approach in his illustrations. And we love her because she's a fancy skeleton showing the world how beautiful Mexican death can be. And talking about famous people that were born in Aguascalientes, we have a singer-songwriter that was very popular in Latin America during the 70s, José María Napoleón, or just known as Napoleon, or the poet of the song. He had beautiful lyrics. He's not exactly very handsome, but he compensates with voice and feeling. He started his career in 1969 and he's still active. In Mexico, we have this sort of program that is called Pueblos Mágicos, magical towns. And the idea is to give a little bit extra budget to some selected towns in Mexico that represent the best our origins, our culture, our legacy in a way, so that we can preserve it and promote it, of course. And the state of Aguascalientes has 3 of those: Real de Asientos, Calvillo, and San Jose de Gracia. Okay, let's start with Real de Asientos. It was a mining town and it's super cute. It's tiny, but it has a lot of charm. And they have many things. Like, for example, they have a museum dedicated to cacti. They also have the ex-convent of Tepozan and another museum, Casa Larrañaga. And a very interesting system of tunnels that were more like an aqueduct underground and another above ground. And now we have Calvillo. It is more a town where you go shopping and relaxing because they have beautiful deshilado. That's an embroidery technique. I'm not really sure if it is embroidery or how can you call it, but they remove certain fibers on the fabric to create patterns, holes, and figures. It's just so beautiful. And you can find it in all sorts of fabric stuff, like handkerchiefs, or tablecloths, or clothing, even a very beautiful umbrella that I saw somewhere over there. They also have a lot of products made with guava, which is the most important local production, and they turn the guavas in all sorts of sauces and candy and snacks. Is just amazing, the quantity of different things and products that you can come up with guavas. And finally, you have a temple to visit, La Parroquia del Señor del Salitre. How can I put that in English? The parish of the Lord of Saltpeter. I know, it's weird, but that's the translation. And the last magical town is San Jose de Gracia. So it's basically a little town next to an artificial lake that was created with a dam. They have an adventure park called Boca de Túnel, where you can find hanging bridges and zip lines. And you can also rent a boat and take a little tour on the lake and visit the Cristo Roto, the Broken Christ. And you can also access the park, National Park, Sierra Fria, where you can do camping, hiking, trekking, or whatever you want. But now I want to go back to the capital city of the state, which is Aguascalientes. It shares the name with the state. Let's start with the outskirts of the city. You need to go to the National Park El Sabinal. It's a huge park with 160 hectares of beautiful and gigantic trees. They are called in Spanish Sabino or Ahuehuete, but I believe you might know them as Sabino tree, or probably with something that I don't think is quite popular, but might be, Moctezuma cypress. Some of those trees are as old as 400 years. And this park is also made for camping, trekking, and hiking. And going a little bit more into the city, there are 2 religious buildings that I believe are worth mentioning. First one will be Aguascalientes Cathedral. It is beautiful construction with 2 towers in Baroque style. And then you have Templo de San Antonio, San Anthony's Temple. This one has only 1 tower, it's much smaller, and both of them are constructed with local quarry stone that you will see. It's beautiful and unique. And talking about beautiful buildings, we have Teatro Morelos. It was constructed at the end of the 1800s years, and it's kind of important historically because it housed a very important assembly during the Mexican Revolution. During that same time, the Mexican Revolution, Aguascalientes played a very important part in the railroad history of this country. It was so important that they actually have a museum about it. Not the history, but the trains and the railroad. It is called Plaza de las Tres Centurias, and you have there one of the actual machines that used to run in those rails back in the day, along with a beautiful and huge train model. We also have a couple museums that are super worth it. For example, the Museum of Guadalupe Posada, the lithographer that I told you about before. And another museum that you might want to stop by is the Museum of the Mexican Traditional Toy. You will find there a lot of samples of handcrafted and traditional and artisanal toys that we have had in Mexico through the ages. Some of them you can actually still find them and buy them for your kids, and some others are a little bit more old, so they are not in fashion anymore. But we still love our traditional toys. But okay, stop talking about museums and theaters and all those things. Let's go to the really, really, really important things. Food. Aguascalientes is a kind of young state, so their food and culture has a beautiful mix of all of the other cultures around them. But they do have some particular dishes that are super representative of Aguascalientes. For example, pollo a la Jardín San Marcos, chicken to the Garden San Marcos style. This is a dish that you can find traditionally during the Feria de San Marcos. It is a chicken dish that is prepared with bacon, pickled chilies, and tomatoes, and is served with potatoes, garlic, onions, and oregano. We also have chile Aguascalientes, which to my knowledge is the only stuffed chili recipe that calls for a red chili, not a green one, chile ancho. And it is stuffed with meat and also with biznaga, grapes, nuts, and guava. We also have gallina en salsa envinada, hen on a wine sauce. It is a hen that is baked with white wine. It is stuffed with onions, nutmeg, pepper, and a little bit of parsley, and then served with a sauce that is made with apples and almonds. And finally, I want to tell you about my favorite Aguascalientes dish, which is not exactly a dish, it's more like a snack, chascas. In other states, it's known as elote en vaso or esquites. This snack is made with shelled corn boiled, served either in a cup or in a plate, both of them usually disposable, served with mayo and a lot of cheese. But in Aguascalientes, they go crazy with it. They reserve some of those shelled corn, and instead of boiling them, they grill them. They also add all sorts of crazy ingredients on top, like different kinds of meat or mushrooms, different kinds of cheese. There is even one place where I went once where they grill them and put mayo and then grill it again and then mayo and cheese and then grill it again and then mayo and cheese, and it's just crazy, but it's delicious. So we started this video with a very carnival and festive kind of mood, and I would like to wrap it up in the same style. So I want to share with you the most iconic song about Feria de San Marcos. But before that, I want you to pause the video, give it a big thumbs up, and subscribe if you don't want to miss on another video about Mexico and tequila and other fun stuff. So see you next week and play!